Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be going over the Echo ranking, which is one of my favorite rankings to cover because it does deliver that good, juicy drama. Now, a couple things to note for this ranking. There is a little bit of a lean towards Japan. Because Japan is the best region, I think that's absolutely fine. And there's also no punishment for players that didn't attend a lot of majors, so we'll be talking about that really shortly. But essentially, there are some players that are ranked incredibly high because they only have one or two placements where they performed exceptionally well. Also, I just forgot to mention this, but huge ups to KENNIKY for making this. His link will be down below, as well as the Echo ranking. I highly recommend you follow them because they do the upset threads now on Twitter. If y'all remember those pgstats upset threads, that's no more. Now Echo ranking is doing that, so go follow them. They do a lot of good work. Back to the video. So we're going to be staying mainly within the top 25 for the sake of this video, though there are a couple irregularities that I want to point out. The main four players I had a problem with were DD, Mars, Quid, and Bloom Forever. And we'll start with Bloom because he's the only player that I would have expected to have been higher because you just look at these region results. First place, first place, first place, first place, first place, second place at Icarus, the only one he loses. Bloom will lose set in the winner side of bracket because he's trolling with a random character and then just sweep and lose. That's how good he is. Now, the reason he is ranked at that 50 though is because he does have this 33rd at King of Fields, which was the only major that Europe had this season. So I actually think his 50 placement does make sense. I just don't think it reflects him as how good he is as a player. I think Bloom's like a top 25 player in the world, but obviously when you have 33rd being your only major result, it makes sense that you're going to be dropping down a lot from that. So that's not too big of a deal. And then you have Mars, Quid, and DD, and these guys just haven't been to literally any events. Like, they have been to nothing. DD doesn't even have a major. He only has Momocon. That's his only event, where granted, he gets third place. He gets wins on Aaron. He gets wins on Chunky Kong. He gets wins on Sunito Shinji. He gets a couple good wins, but that's his only result. And this algorithm does not punish people at all for bad placements. So it's going to see, oh, what? He has a third place at a pretty big regional. Yeah, sure, we'll put him in that top 20. Mars, it's kind of the same thing, except Mars has some very good major performances. The only majors he's been to are Genesis and Major Upset, or rather Level Up Expo, where he gets a 9th at Genesis with so many good wins. He top 8's Major Expo, so many good wins. He also gets a 3rd at KawaiiCon with a win on Gluttony. So Mars' results, while there's not many of them, all of them are very good results. And then finally, you have Quid, who also only has 2 majors. Goes on a really nice loser run at Collision, though, so he gets a bunch of good wins. Chag, Shinji, DeBuzz, Yoda Cage. And then Let's Make Big Moves isn't crazy, but he still does pick up a Chase win, which is actually pretty good because Chase did get ranked fairly high here. So I think Quid, DD, and Mars are potentially this good at the game. I think they can be ranked this high if they were actively competing. But from the results that they have, they definitely shouldn't be up here. So for this 100 to 76 area, there's a lot of players here who I think will be continually improving as the year goes on. I think the main ones for me are Karage, Kananabe, Kronos, Andrix, Shaddix, a very obvious one as well. Those are all players that I think are going to improve later on in the year and be ranked a little bit higher. Level 1's also been on an upwards trend. You have Goblin, who's a constant threat. Almighty, if he actually makes a big return, could be ranked a little bit higher. Andres FN, if there's more majors in Europe. Again, a lot of the European players did get kind of slighted on this list just because there wasn't any European tournaments. But you have Tarek appearing in here, mainly probably because his run at Battle of BC, as well as performing at the only European major, which is important. But the main player I want to highlight from this section is Toraguri, who got top 100 in the world in current meta Smash Ultimate with solo Banjo. That is ridiculous. Like, that is actually so insane. The amount of talent. And he's good, by the way. It's not like he's just giving people. Toraguri is insane. His Banjo, he makes the character look like actually viable. I would highly recommend you watch one of his sets, especially one versus Midas, of course. That is the classic where you just kind of get to see how goated he is. But Toraguri is an amazing player. I think the only players I was kind of surprised to see this low are Luis, just because he is, in my mind, still in contention for that best Palutena. But his placements have definitely not been rivaling Chase and Jagaimo. I just think he is an incredible player. So while I do think he is a little bit low, it's not the end of the world. Also, shouts to Basemage for getting that high with Jigglypuff. Not as bad with Banjo, but Jigglypuff is still not an amazing character. And again, in current meta Ultimate, for your low tier mates or mid tier mates to be doing this well in the game, it's pretty insane. Next up, you have 75 to 51. I feel like this is the most tame part of the list, but something I just wanted to mention is how many Inklings there are on this list. There's way too many, that being 3, of course, but you have Shiryuki at 100, Showers at 68 with a PT secondary. Love that lineup, by the way. And then finally, you have Space at 61, using the character as more of a secondary, but still using him. And it's just kind of crazy to me that Inkling is doing this well, because I feel like right now we are in the most brutal meta for Ultimate that we have ever seen. Characters like Inkling, who struggle a lot to kill and are fairly one-dimensional, like, you know, they're going to be going for a grab, they're going to be going for a roll, they want to edge or cheese you. There's so many ways that Inkling is able to kind of get exploited, but you're still finding these characters having success. Like, it's actually unreal how talented these guys are. You have the secret return of Ron as well. I feel like Ron just kind of disappeared after he got ranked on PGR Season 2, but now he's back. He's performing as well with a secondary Kirby that I didn't even know about. You have Pasariman being able to take his title of Best Fox in Japan, though I don't know how long he'll be able to do that for because Kanarabe just feels inevitable. Like, he is such a good player, rapidly improving, but Pasariman is very good as well, picking up a secondary Diddy Kong, so that's definitely going to help him out. And then the other player that I want to highlight, the main player I want to highlight in this area is Wrath. You guys know I like Wrath. I think Wrath is a very talented player. He started going to events more. I think if he continues this trend, he's only going to go up and up. You have Riku being placed over Quandale Dinglingleton, which is pretty interesting. Shouts to Riku. This was definitely his breakout season. I mean, you have Doramigi. I mean, last weekend was literally Doramigi's weekend. He went off super hard. I think the only players that I would have expected to have been ranked a little bit higher would have been Anathema, honestly. That's probably the one that caught me off guard the most. But that's probably just because I have Anathema so highly in my mind because his tech skill is just incredible. But overall, I think the 75 to 51 part isn't too crazy. There's a couple players that could improve and go up. I think MVD's a player that could definitely go up. Enhanced PV, a Torier when he's playing well could definitely go up, but he's a little bit inconsistent right now, so we'll have to see if he's able to fix that. But overall, I think this part of the list is pretty typical. Next up, you have the 50 to 26 area, and this is where the drama gets a little bit more interesting. Shout out to Skyship for getting 34th with Incineroar, which is crazy, and Capitancito for getting 44th with Mii Gunner and a secondary Mii Swordsman. Like, I don't even know what that secondary Mii Swordsman done, but clearly it's working because he's top 50 in the world. Like, that is ridiculous. It's also, it just doesn't sit with me that Mii Gunner and Mii Swordsfighter are on this list, but Mii Brawler isn't. Like, Mii Brawler players, y'all need to step it up because that character is ridiculous. Like, Brawler is so good. Low-key top 10. Like, actually insane. But regardless of that, you also have Hurt being ranked over Dio, which is a little interesting. I would still probably put Dio over Hurt right now just because the start of his season is so strong. But recently, Hurt has been farming. He won a really big regional, has been improving super fast. I think later on in the year, he'll definitely be the best snake in Japan, potentially the best snake in the world. Like, yes, he is that good. Definitely something you need to keep your eye out on. You also have Chase being one spot over Jagaim, which is very interesting. I would rank Chase as the highest placing Palutena right now, especially after that run at Crown. He was looking incredibly solid there. But Jagaim also has a bunch of good performances that you could definitely put him up there for. You have Jobu being ranked way higher than Karage. I would have thought that being a lot closer because it feels like they always go neck and neck at tournaments. Like, one guy will do good one weekend, the other guy will do bad next weekend. It switches around and they both get the same placement. But Jobu clearly pulling ahead there. You also have Lima being ranked higher than Bloom. Now, we kind of already talked about that, but Lima, his season's also been really, really good. I think the only players that I'm surprised by that I think would be a little bit higher, I thought Big D would be a little bit higher, but not something crazy like maybe 10 spots max. I think maybe Apollo Kage could have been a couple spots higher, Ken could have been a couple spots higher, but at this point in the list, it kind of gets to the nitty gritty of when I say, yeah, I think they should be higher, I mean by like 5 spots, so it doesn't really matter. Now's another one as well, just because the start of his season was pretty strong. Cosmos has been consistent, though he did fall off a little bit towards the end. So overall, I think the 26 to 50 area is fine. There's nothing that's super egregious here. Onto that juicy top 25, we're going to be doing things in increments of 5. We'll be skipping DD though, because we're going to talk about that. So our first increment is Ouch, Yara, Hiro, Onin, and Meister. Starting off with Ouch, and while he doesn't have a top 8 at a major yet this season, I mean, these results are really key. He does have a 33rd at Battle of BC5, which is a little low, losing to Leo and JDV. Still does get a Mr. Arden though, but at major upset, able to get a 9th place there, wins on Opsign, Bombastic, and Aaron. And then this Genesis run is going to be definitely his highlight, where he gets wins on Marvelous Marco, Orion, Jada's Kameme, and now. So Ouch, incredibly consistent. I really think he is one of the best players in the world, definitely deserving of that top 25 spot. The competition between him and Jackal, though, I think it's going to be very close for who is the best wolf at the end of the year, because Jackal has been on an upward trend. I think I forgot to mention him in players that I expect to be a little bit higher later on. Jackal is definitely going to go up. Like, he is amazing. Our next player, though, it is going to be Yara, and Yara is insane. I think he definitely is the best Samus in the world at this point. Starts off a little bit weaker with a 33rd at Umabora, but it doesn't take long for him to bounce back with this 7th place at Meisuma top 11. Then he's a 4th place at Kowloon 5. Has a little bit of a low one here at Meisuma top 12. 13th at Kagadibi 10 is really good though. 17th at Battle of BC is pretty good. 2nd place at Kowloon 6. And then most recently, a 3rd place at CEO. So as you can see, he does have a little bit of inconsistencies, but he is able to hit that peak, which I think matters more right now. Yara is a fairly new top player. You're going to expect him to be a little bit more inconsistency, but the fact that he's already shown, okay, I'm able to bounce back really quickly, go from a 33rd to a 7th. I'm able to get into these top 8s at really hard majors. I think it's really promising for Yara, and I expect him, honestly, to continue going upward. He's definitely a player that I could see being top 10 later on in the year. Next up, you're going to have Hito, who is incredibly consistent with Bowser for no reason. Like, it doesn't make sense. You have a 17th here, a 7th here at Kagaribi 9, 17th at Meisuma top 11, 13th at Delta 3. His lowest performance is going to be this 33rd at Wave 4, which is a little bit unfortunate. But then he has his 7th place at Meisuma top 12. He top 8's winner side of Kagaribi 10, the biggest tournament of the year, so that's obviously massive. 9th place at Meisuma top 13 as well. Like, all these results are just amazing. Then you have Onan. Now, Onan doesn't have a ton of major performances. He has this 25th at Let's Make Big Moves, which isn't amazing. Then he just wins like 30 regionals in a row. Then his 17th at Battle BC, also not amazing. Still gets an Apollo Kage win, though, so not the end of the world. And then he 4th place at Crown. That's obviously going to be your star run, getting wins on Kronos, Meister, Gact, Chase, and Tweak. So even though Onan doesn't have a ton of majors under his belt, one of the majors that he does have in Crown is a really nice performance there. And then finally you have Meister. Now, Meister, really weak start to the season. He gets a 33rd at Let's Make Big Moves, 25th at Genesis. They're not the end of the world placements because these are super big majors, but when you're a top 10 caliber player like Meister, it's a little bit weak to start off. And then he says, you know what? I'm just going to start trying again. Boom. 4th at Collision, 3rd at Low Tide City, 5th at Battle of BC, with so many good wins at all of these tournaments. Like, these performances from Meister are unreal, and unfortunately, he does fall a little bit flat at Crown, but to be fair, he lost to Onan and Spargo, and while Meister is no longer the best game watch in the world, he is still a very scary player that you need to be worried for when he's in your bracket. Our next handful of players is going to be Karama, Dabuz, Zomba, and Osmo. We're going to be skipping Mars for the same reason that we skipped DD, but he starts off a little bit weaker with 17 places at Collision and Genesis. Crazy that that's a weaker placement, but when you are in contention for top 20 in the world, those are going to be some of your lower results. And then Karama just turns on the boosters because he gets a 4th place at Summit, 2 wins on SkyJ, a win on Mutace, Void, and Spargo. That's obviously going to be your biggest one. 5th place at Major Upset, wins on Zomba, Fizmin, and JDV. 2nd place at DreamHack San Diego, only losing to MK Big Boss, wins on Larry Lur, Luis, Chase, Naito, and AC. 7th place at Crown, wins on Dark Wizzy in the Ditto, T, and Apollo Kage. And finally, a 5th place at King of Fields, wins on Niroz, Pew, and Eco. Karama is definitely still the best Mario in the world. Though Snow has been making waves, Now's been making waves, Dark Wizzy has some good results, Ludo did really well in Major Upset. There are a bunch of Mario players that are doing well, but Karama, he just seems like pinnacle Mario. His movement is clean, his conversions are the best, and he's overall he's amazing. He's top 20 in the world. What can I say? Next up, you're going to have Dabuz. Starts off a little bit weaker with a 9th place at Let's Make Big Moves, which is crazy that that's so weak. Honestly, that's not that bad. He wins on Apollo Kage, MPG, Goblin, and Doorstop. 13th place at Genesis, wins on Shattuck, Gact, Ondrick, and B. Rice. Then he has a 33rd at Collision, which is a little bit weaker. Still gets a win on Stefan. Wins Pact East Arena, which is always nice. Wins on Jackal and Naito Sharp. Then he has a 33rd at Meisuma, 33rd at Delta 4, and this is when it was looking like, you know what, Dabuz's season, it's a little rough. He has 3 33rds, and then Dabuz just said, you know what, screw you guys, this losers run at Kagribi. This losers run single-handedly salvaged Dabuz's season, because this run is ridiculous. By the way, he gets so many good wins. He beats Hikaru, he beats Abadangu, Matsunabe, Kanaji, Dio, Hurt, Passeriman, Riddles, and Hiro before losing to Spargo. This run is ridiculous. 13th at Battle of BC as well. Gets wins on Yada and Tarek, only losing to Akula and Yoshidora. Wins Combo Breaker, wins CEO, only dropping a set to Riddles beating Apollo Kage, Yara, Riddles. Like, Dabuz, if you just look at this right here, this is what peak Dabuz looks like. And unfortunately, you do have these results which are holding him back a little bit. But the fact that you're being held back by these results and you're still top 20 in the world kind of just shows how goated he is. You have Zomba as well, who's following a very similar trend. The earlier stuff, it's definitely not as strong. He doesn't do amazing at Genesis, getting a 13th place there, which again, isn't the end of the world, especially at a place like Genesis. Still gets a win on Big D, Orion, and Source. 17th place at Let's Make Big Moves, wins on Gen and Boost. Then he goes to Level Up Expo, where he actually does pretty well, gets a 7th place there, wins on Wrath and Naito. 9th place at Collision, Quandale, Dinglingleton, Almighty Armadillo. 9th place at Major Upset, wins on Luis, Moxie, and Xavier. 3rd at Cirque du CFL, pretty good. 25th at Delta is definitely going to be his weakest performance of the season. Then he just goes crazy. Something happened between Delta 4 and Kagaribi 10 because Zomba just became like the best player in America because he gets a 9th place at Kagaribi, 7th place at Battle of BCP, Tweak and Leo, as well as Ken and Quick, and then obviously he has this big win at Crown, wins on Chag, Sonics, MK, Leo, Tweak, Shuton, and Jackal. He beats Leo and Tweak 2 tournaments in a row. This is amazing from Zomba. He is definitely the best Rob in the world right now. Even with MK Big Boss having a ton of success, obviously you still have a bunch of Rob players out there that are amazing, but Zomba's just looking so good right now. And then finally, you're going to have Osimo. Now, Osimo's a player that I love talking about how good he is because he really is simply incredible at this game. 9th place at Umabora, 2nd place at Kagaribi Night, almost taking it from Akla. Gets an Akla win as well as wins on Zachary, Yoshidora, Kameme, Torie. 4th place at Meisuma, top 11 with, again, monstrous loser runs. So many good wins along the way, including players like T, like Shuton. 3rd place at Kowloon 5. Then he has a couple 13s in a row, which are going to be bringing him down. 13th at Kagalibi 10, again, not the end of the world, losing to Spargo and losers as well, though unfortunate. 13th at Delta 4, 13th at Meisuma, top 12. But most recently, he does do a little bit of a recovery with a 5th place at Meisuma, top 13. Also, he's doing well at regional events. Like, I know I'm skipping over the Suma Botchos, but they do matter, and he is consistently doing well with them. So, shouts to Osmo. He really is an amazing player that I feel like still flies under the radar. Like, you guys need to put some respect on this guy's name because he is crazy. Our next gaggle of players is going to be Zachary, T, Shutone, and Glutini. Starting off with Zachary, whose season I feel like is fairly self-explanatory. 13th in Numabora, not bad, wins on Takara and Riziasu. Then he does something crazy in loser bracket with Pit, and in a row beats Choco, Lunia, Nanchan, Umeki, Neo, Riziasu, Kameme, Ayam, Ken, and Yoshidora for a 3rd place at Kagadibi 9. That's ridiculous. Then falls a little bit short at Wave 4. What happens? He's playing Pit. The character's a little bit inconsistent. Bounces back insanely hard with his 3rd place at Kagadibi 10 again. Kagadibi is going to be his tournament with wins on Sen, Noi, Zamba, and Hiro. And pretty much Zachary's season is he did good at Kagadibi and did kind of mid everywhere else. I guess at 13 at Umabora isn't honestly that bad. He has a couple good results. He did win this winter, and I don't think it was ranked for a ton, but you still have to get players like Takai. You have to beat Takai. You have to beat Ken. You have to beat 2 songs to be able to win that tournament. So I think overall Zachary's season has been looking pretty strong. I'm curious to see if he shifts away from the Pit and starts playing Joker and Rob again, because he can make the Pit work, but he doesn't have to. I feel like that's kind of the difficult choice with your characters. Do you want to play the character that you're going to need to put in a lot more work with because you're having a lot more fun with them, or do you want to put in the character that is way easier to have success with at the top level, but something you might not enjoy as much? We'll have to see. Maybe he'll find his love for some old characters again too. Please let it be Wolf. But our next player is going to be T, 2nd place at Umabora. Again, T's season has been up and it's been down. The 2nd place at Umabora is definitely his best result. Wins on Osimo, Munikin, Kameme, Yoshidora. After this, though, it does quiet down for a bit. 9th place at Genesis, only losing to Leo and Aquila, so you can't even blame for that. Still gets wins on Debuzz, Ouch, and Manzai. 17th place at Meisuma, a little bit low again, only losing to Neo and Osimo. They aren't bad losses. He has a 2nd place at Tamasuma as well, only losing to Aquila, getting a couple good wins along the way. 5th place at Meisuma, top 12. But then, unfortunately for T, he has a couple rough tournaments in a row. 17th place at Kagadibi 10, 13th place at Crown, 13th place at Meisuma, top 13. And again, these placements aren't the end of the world. He's still getting 13th at Super Majors. This is a P-tier event, and he's still getting 17th. But when you're getting to the area where someone's in contention for top 10 in the world, these placements become really, really hurtful towards your record, and they are going to be what's holding T down. I definitely think he can bounce back in the latter half of the year and reclaim that top 10 spot. You have Shuton as well, who I was a little bit surprised to see this low, but he has had some inconsistencies, especially towards the start of the season. Starts off with a 5th place at Umabora, which is obviously amazing. Wins on Kome. Ken, I don't know if Kyojin Dodo was in the ranking season as well. It might have been, but if it was, he get wins on Gax, Tuki, only losing to T and Ken. Then he has a 17th place at Kagadibi 9, which is a little bit unfortunate. Still gets wins on Jigaimo and Takara, which isn't the end of the world. 9th place at Meisuma, you know what? Not that bad. 13th place, or rather 3rd place at Subigeki 13, wins on Kameme, Aim, and Jigaimo, and then he just goes super hard for like 2 weeks in a row. Well, we're going to skip Gen 1.1 because that's not an amazing performance for him, 25th there, but he wins Kowloon 5 after a ridiculous run, winning the tournament, double eliminating Mio, getting wins on Osimo, Yara, Shiryuki, the guy that beat him previously, so this is an amazing run. Wins Wave 4 without any sets drop, double eliminating Kameme, then he has a 9th place at Meisuma top 12, 3rd place at Delta 4, again, really good, only losing to Mia here. But the nail in the coffin that I think kept him out of the top 10 is this 25th at Kagadibi 10. Wins on Kameme, Rain. He's been farming Kameme this season, by the way, but still, it's a little bit unfortunate. And then he has these 2 third places, which is just ridiculous. JDV, Mute, Siski, Zomba, Kameme, Meister. He gets Kameme again. He cannot stop beating Kameme. I feel bad for Kameme for that one. And then finally, you have Crown wins on Captain Crub, Apollo Kage, Light, and Jackal. So I personally think that Shutone is still top 10 this season, but you can see why he isn't with a couple of his inconsistencies. 25th at Kagalibi, 25th at Gen 1.1, even though it is just a regional, it still does hurt. Misses top 8 at Meisuma, gets a 17th at Kagalibi 9, so he has a couple lower performances, but for the most part, he's still been looking incredible this season. And then finally, you have Glutini, who finally gets a major win in Europe most recently. We'll talk about that in a second, but he starts off the season amazingly. Like Glutini's season, it's pretty much flawless. He's a 5th place at Let's Make Big Moves, wins on Light, Tilde, Popeye, Mystery. 5th place at Genesis, wins on Tweak, Mars, Chase, and Quandale, Dingle, Lingleton. 7th place at Summit, wins on Hungry Box, Leo, Aaron, and New Days. Then he gets a 2nd place at KawaiiCon, gets a Tweak win and a Mars win. Third place at Shonen War, that's more of a regional event, so is Kawaii Con as well, just in case you're curious. Third place at Invasion. Ninth place at Battle of BC, his only top 8 miss of the entire year, by the way, with still wins on Light, Neo, Justice, and Aloha. And then finally, he also wins a couple regionals here. Like, he's been doing really well in Europe again, which is always nice to see. But this King of Field wins, this matters a lot to me. For a long time, Gluten was struggling in Europe. He wasn't able to close out the major performances. He was getting beat by players like Bloom, by players like Lugi, but he finally gets one flawlessly with wins on Quick, Lugi, Space, Monsai, Tarek, and Naskino. Gluteny, he's been looking amazing this season. Again, he doesn't really have any flaws in it. One spot away from the top 10, and one or two more tournaments. Like, the alt ranking season doesn't actually close till around Gommel, so if he does top 8 at Gommel performance there, he could definitely sneak into the top 10. And finally, we are into that top 10. Our first batch of players is Kameme, Sonics, Yoshidora, and Riddles. We'll get to that juicy top 6 later. Starting off with Kameme, who starts off kind of like Shuton does, to be honest. I feel like this season is very similar to him. Has a 4th place at Umabora, wins on Ryuo, Zachary, Umeki, and Tora. 17th at Genesis, which is a little bit lower. Again, normally 17th at a P tier isn't that bad, but when you are a top 10 caliber player, if you're not getting top 8, top 9 at these tournaments, it is going to be hurting your resume a little bit, but still picks up a Jackal win there. 9th place at Kagurabi 9, wins on Suinoko, Leah, and Hikaru. Then back-to-back second places with wins on Shuton. Finally gets a Shuton win. Gact and Umeki. And then second place at Wave 4 as well. Wins on Kome, Masa, Umeki, and Matsunabe. These two tournaments, though, are going to be the things that hurt him the most. And he's still top 10 with these two tournaments, by the way, which is crazy. It just kind of shows how well he's been doing. But a 17th place at Meisuma with losses to Repo and Riddles. The Riddles loss doesn't hurt you at all. The Repo loss is going to hurt you a little bit. 33rd at Kagurabi as well, losing to Masha and Shuton again. And then, like Shuton, he does really well at Battle of BC, losing Shuton, ironically. But these losers run, I mean, these are ridiculous. Wins on Big D, Lugi, Onin, MKLeo, Gluteny, Yoshidora, Mia, Yoshidora again, Asimo, Proto Bonham, Hiro, T, Shirayuki. Like, these losers run from Kameme are truly historical. It is amazing what he did with these last two tournaments. Saved his season super hard, because if he just went out right away after losing to Mutes and losing to Sylph, he could have had a really bad season, been knocked all the way out of the top 20, maybe even out of the top 30, but instead he says, you know what, I'm going hero mode, and gets 4th at a P tier event and 3rd at an S tier event. Just amazing recovery in both of those tournaments. Next up, you're going to have Sonics. Now, the thing about Sonics is he doesn't really have bad results. His worst result is that 13th at Crown, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Starts off amazing with a 3rd place at Let's Make Big Moves, also making a pretty sizable loser run, being Jazo, Kronos, Quick, Cosmos, Riddles, Gluteny, and then, of course, MKLeo. Then he gets a 4th place at Genesis, beating Gluteny, Spargo, Karama, Moxie, Now. 3rd place at Level Up Expo, beating Cosmos, Cola, Zomba, Quandale. 5th place at Collision, beating Zomba, Apollo Kage, MPG. Then takes a little bit of a break. 2nd place at Momocon, beating DD Light, finally getting a light win, even though he does lose the run back. I think that win is very important. It's the first step. Then he also gets wins on Cola and Teaser. Then he has his only underperformance with his 13th place at Crown. Still gets wins on MFA and Captain Krupp. And finally, he has a 2nd place at Wave Dash, only losing to MKLeo while still picking up a Leo win, as well as 2 Andric wins, a Monty win, and an Atreus win. So overall, Sonic is amazing. Definitely the best Sonic player in the world. I feel like we knew that, but just in case some people were like, yeah, maybe Ken still got it, maybe Takai still got it, I'm a Wrath fan. It is Sonic's. He plays this character the best out of anyone, and the reason for that is, in my opinion, his aggression. He's by far the best aggressive Sonic in the world. He will kill you in 30 seconds regularly, and then he also camps you, which is incredibly scary because he has such an odd dynamic of being extremely explosive and really slow, and it just makes him incredibly hard to deal with. Then you would have Yoshidora up next. 3rd place at Umabora, amazing. Jagaimo win, Umeki win, Dio win, Shuton win, Kameme win. 4th place at Kagurabi 9, amazing. Wins on Now, I Am, and Neo. Then he has his only underperformance of the season with a 13th place at Meisuma top 11, where he still picks up wins on Hurt, Takeda, and Hiro. 7th place at Meisuma top 12, wins on Shuton, Abadongo. I think this is Oi George right here, but I'm not 100% certain about that. Then he's at 5th place at Kagurabi 10, wins with Masha, wins on Jazo, wins on Alice, Yes. 7th place at Battle of BC, wins on Base Mage, Debuzz, Armadillo, and Chad, getting top 8 at the only P tier events that he's been to. The 2 P tiers he went to, Battle of BC and Kagurabi, he gets top 8 at both those events, so he's got to be feeling good about that. This is Oi George, by the way, just in case you are curious. And then finally, he has a 4th place at Meisuma top 13, wins on Takara, Hiro, Takara again. I honestly think that Yoshidora could be moved up to that number 7 spot. He is insane. This season's been looking really good. The only thing that he's lacking that people above him have is a big major win. His highest performance is going to be this 3rd place at Umabora, but to be honest, he's not far away from him. He's even won a couple big regionals, like most notably Sumabato, where he double eliminates Mia and beats Osmo like Yoshidora. He's looking insane. I have him as my current number 7 right now. Sorry, I had a bit of a mic issue there, but our number 7 player is going to be Riddle. Starts off really strong with the 7th place at Let's Make Big Moves, wins on Buzz and Jen. Then he has his 33rd Genesis, which does hurt his season a lot, unfortunately, losing to Chase and EU Leon. Gets a win on Void, Reed, and Splash Daddy. Then he bounces back really nicely with a win at Frosty Fausting and carries that momentum into winning Collision with wins over Leo, Songs, and 2 wins over Skyjay, as well as a couple other players. And then the next weekend, even though he does get 9th at Summit, he still beats both Leo and Spargo, which I think is way more important than the placement. To be honest, those are 2 really nice wins to have. 3rd place at Major Upset as well, wins on MFA, 2 wins on Chase, Karama, and Big D. And then he's one of the only American players that did really well in the Japan Draft. I mean, he's not American, he's Canadian, but you know what I mean, NA players. He gets a 4th place at Meishin with top 12, wins on Kimeme, Send, Ken, Hiro, T, and Atorie, as well as Ryuo. 2nd place at Delta 4. This Mia win is huge, because not a lot of people have a Mia win, so huge shouts to him for getting that one, as well as a couple other players. 7th place at Kagadibi as well, really nice losers run here, wins on Kome, Shuton, Lima, Omatsu, and Masha. And then unfortunately, he does underperform again at Battle of BC with a 17th place. And it's just really unfortunate for Riddles that the 2 events that he does bad at are the P tier events, the one that matter the most. They're going to be hurting the season a little bit. He also has a 2nd place at CEO with a monstrous loser run, beating in a row Fatality, MPG, Aaron, Goblin, Yosufu, Isam, Apollo Kage, MVD, Yara, and Buzz. Riddles has had a really good season. Again, it really is just those 2 P tier events that are holding him back, which is a little bit unfortunate, but he's still definitely a top 10 player, even with those lower performances. Absolutely insane. I'm really excited to see how he continues later on in the year. Also, shouts to him doing really well in Street Fighter 6. And we are finally at the magnum opus of this top 6, which is probably why most people clicked on this video, so let's get right into it. You have Light and Leo, who I think are interchangeable. You have Mia and Tweak, who I think are interchangeable. And you have Spargo and Akla, who I think are interchangeable. I know it's a little bit of a trend, but for Light and Leo, this one's pretty interesting to me, because you have Light, who has a 5th place at Let's Make Big Moves. Leo gets 4th. You have Light with a 3rd place at Genesis. Leo wins. You have Light with a 9th at Collision. Leo gets 9th. You have a Light with a 13th at Battle of BC. Leo gets 13th. You have Light with a 9th at Crown, and Leo gets a 5th at Crown. So all the events that both players have been to, Light is either overperformed by Leo or they get the exact spots. But of course, there are events that not both players went to. You have Leo winning Wave Dash, but this is kind of nullified by Light winning Momocon, because the hallmark win that both players got at this event is Sonics by double eliminating him. So I would say those kind of cancel each other out. You have Light winning Level of Expo with 2 wins on Tweak and 2 wins on Songs, but you have Leo with a 2nd place on Major Upset with wins on Karama and Spargo. I would say the nail in the coffin for Light fans, though, is going to be this 9th place at Ultimate Summit 6. He only gets wins on Aaron, Hungrybox, and Nader U, and he does drop 4 sets. Now, they are to Riddles, Apollo, Kage, Glutzy, and Aqua. Like, none of those are bad losses, but they are still losses nonetheless. Now, I think Leo is top 5 still. I have him at 5th, and I have Light at 6th, but we've talked about it. They are very, very close. It really is the fine details of what you value more. Maybe there's certain players you value more, where Leo got them at his Genesis win, maybe Light at Level of X, but you're like, you know what, that double Tweak win is really important to me. I think Light's better. I think both are fine, and that's why, you know, they're interchangeable. Our next set of interchangeable players are Mia and Tweak, and I think this is really just what you value. Do you value peaks, or do you value consistency? And this algorithm values consistency, which is why you're going to see Tweak a little bit higher, but for Mia, has a 49th at Kagadibi 9 and a 13th at Umabora. These are his only bad results. Everything else is amazing. He's a 2nd place at Japan 24, 1st place at Meisuma top 11, 1st place at Subigehi 13, 2nd place at Kowloon 5, 2nd place at Meisuma top 12, 1st place at Delta 4, 7th place at Kakribi 10, 5th place at Battle of BC, and a 1st place at Meisuma top 13. This is crazy. This is so good for Mia. Look at Tweak's results as well. There's not a single flaw on that. That's the difference. Tweak doesn't have some of the peaks, but there is no flaws in it. He also does have some of the peaks with a 1st place at Let's Make Big Moves, wins on Anathema, Riddles, MK Leo, and 2 Spargo wins. 7th place at Genesis, wins on MK Big Boss, Rocky, Vendetta, and Cosmos. 2nd place at Level of Expo, wins on Andric, Mars, Cosmos, and Light. 7th place at Collision, wins on MVD, Pina, and Light. 2nd place at Summit, where he gets a bunch of good wins, including Aaron, Skyjay, Big D, Apollo Kage, Proto Bonham, and Big D again. Wins KawaiiCon, getting wins on Mars, Void, and Gluttony. 9th place at Battle of BC, which is his worst performance, by the way, with wins on Black Twin, Slime, Riddles, and Light. At his worst performance, he got 2 top 10 wins, and then finally a 5th place at Crown with wins on Ludo, Quinn, Luis, and Kurama. So as you can see, Tweak is Mr. Consistency, Mia is Mr. Peaks. He has some of the lows, and Tweak has less highs, but he also has similar highs, like, you know, 2nd at Summit, 1st at Let's Make Big Moves. Those are going to be reflecting some of Mia's really good runs, like his 1st place at Meisuma, but I still have Tweak as the number 3 player and me as the number 4. Again, I think they are fairly interchangeable. It really is just what you value more. And finally, you have our top 2 of Spargo and Aquila, undeniably top 2 in the world. And this is by far the hardest ranking that I've ever done. And at least for this top 2 area, picking number 1, it's like literally impossible because you have Spargo, 2nd place at Let's Make Big Blues, 5th place at Genesis, Summit we'll get back to, 3rd place at Collision, wins Major Upset, wins Kagalibi, wins Battle of BC, gets a 9th place at Crown, has a 5-0 record versus Aquila. So he has 2 bad performances and a 5-0 record versus the guy that he is in contention with. And then you look at Aquila's results. It's a first at Japan 24, first at Umebora. His worst event of the year by far is a 7th place at Genesis. This is the worst event by far. That's crazy. He also has a win at Kagalibi 9, a 3rd place at Meisuma Top 11, a win at Ultimate Summit 6, a win at Meisuma Top 12, a 2nd place at Kagalibi 10, and a 2nd place at Battle of BC. So it's really tricky here. What do you value? Do you value consistency or do you value peaks? Because the peaks are 100% going to Spargo. I mean, he wins 2 P-tier events and he does well at the other P-tier event, overplacing Aquila there as well. The consistency for Aquila, though, he doesn't have a bad tournament, and Spargo has a couple. This crown placement, it doesn't really matter to me. What matters to me is this 13th at Summit with a loss to Void, especially that's going to be an unranked loss. You look at Aquila's losses, spoilers, he doesn't have bad losses. The only bad losses he might have are at some like local events, but I don't really count those, and either does a ranking season. It doesn't really matter. So there's kind of 2 ways you look at this. You have consistency, that goes to Aquila. You have peaks, it goes to Spargo. You have head-to-head, it goes to Spargo, and you have bad losses, it goes to Aquila. It really is what you value. In my opinion, the best player in the world undeniably right now is Spargo. Like, it's not even close. But the best player for this entire ranking season, I think it does have to go to Aquila. And there is a difference between these things because the best player right now doesn't reflect the best player in the last 6 months, which is, of course, what the ranking season is spanning. And I thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And again, we got to give another shout out to KENNIKY because this just is a very cool list. He also made an entire article with it. Again, links will be down below. I highly recommend that you check this out. And it's just overall great time. If there's any player that I left out at any point in this video, please let me know down below. And that's all I got to say. Sports been absolutely unreal lately. Thank you guys for everything. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.